This episode of Shaun of the South is brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition in my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best cure for idle hands was to build something. So keep your hands sharp with a Case knife. And by our buddies at WNC Original Music. My pal Ron Taylor scours the country, gathering and curating music that will bless your heart and blow your hair back. Do yourself a favor and visit WNC Original Music Podcast today. You won't regret it. Well, you are listening to Shaun of the South, and I'm your host today, Sean Dietrich, and man, we got a great show lined up ahead of here, coming to you live at the podcast airwaves and the radio waves all over this fine nation. I'm sitting in the studio with my guitar. I've never done this, and I've always wanted to do this. I always wanted to play music for the people who are good enough to listen to this show, this mediocre show without any kind of compass or direction. We just turn on the microphone and we go. And if you find yourself having to use the little boy's room in the middle of recording, well, tough luck, which is where I am right now. We did a short rehearsal just to warm up the old voice, and then we hit record, and now here I am, and I'm stuck before you, and I'm probably going to be playing everything a whole lot faster than normal because of that immense pressure in my bladder. So I will apologize for that. But I like to play some good old songs for you. I love old songs. I love old things. The guitar that I'm holding on my lap is a 1919 Stella guitar. Now, Stella made these old guitars a long time ago that were parlor guitars, meant for playing in your parlor. They were small, and they were well, they're not too nice. They're actually kind of mediocre guitars. And it's got this old sound because it is old. It's 100 years old. And I play it, it shows all over. I've played it in 30 states this past year. I think I said that in earlier podcasts. And I love playing old things. I love touching old things. I love antiques. Antiques are one of my favorite things in the world. Good Lord. I feel like when I see them, I'm going back in time. It's no different when you're playing music on an old instrument, because it feels almost like you've been injected into a time machine. And so when you play the old songs that were written in this era on a guitar that was around during this era, you have a feeling that you're there and that you're of the same mind and same spirit as those musicians who lived long ago, who played songs like this one here, which is my home state song. Way down upon the Swanee River, far, far from home, that's where my heart is turning ever, back with the old folks at home. All the world is sad and dreary everywhere I roam. All down on the Swanee River, back with the old folks at home. Way down upon the Chattahoochee, all over the place I roam. All up and down creation, as one of the old folks at home. All the world is sad and dreary everywhere I roam. Way down upon the Swanee River, my heart is with the old folks at home. on that little farm. I wondered back when I was young. My childhood days I squandered back with the old folks at home. Oh, the world is sad and dreary everywhere I roam. Oh, brother, how my heart goes weary, far from the old folks at home. Far from the old folks at home. I do love that song. I love that melody. I heard Stephen Foster wrote that before he had ever even seen the Swanee River. He just liked that name. Of course, that's a different part of Florida than I'm from. I'm from the Panhandle, but the Swanee is a gorgeous place. Went there once for my wife's birthday, and we floated down that river, and I saw alligators that were the size of Buicks, and we lost a lot of things that had been stored in our bowels during that trip. It's scary looking at something that's covered in black scales looking at you from a log. This guitar would have been used 100 years ago to play a style of blues called the Piedmont style blues, which is something I've always loved. Now, there's different kinds of blues. There's the Delta blues, which kind of goes like this. Before. That's a very popular style blues. That's Piedmont. That's not Piedmont. That's the Delta. Kind of a Mississippi style blues. Well, there's another style blues that predates the Delta blues, at least they say. It's called the Piedmont style blues, which really was developed by guys like Blind Willie and Blind Blake. These were black musicians who were street performers, and they played old parlor guitars like this. An old parlor Gibson or an old parlor Stella. These just old ugly guitars that were kind of cheap, and they'd have crummy strings. And the defining characteristic of the Piedmont blues that I always really liked was this alternating bass. And you do that with your thumb, and every song you play is more or less peppered with that. Now, they say this started in the Piedmont region, around South Carolina and such. But earlier evidence claims that I think it was Blind Blake, actually, in Florida, developed this style of blues, or was, one of the developers of this style of blues, which derives a lot of its vocabulary from ragtime, which is kind of a faster thing. I know you don't care about any of this. I'm telling you this to get up to this one point. To say that this style of blues, this alternating thumb bass thing, became the basis for a lot of country music. Merle Travis, Chet Atkins, Doc Watson. This was a huge part of their music, which I love. Also, this kind of blues was heavily influential on Jimmy Rogers and Hank Williams. The Piedmont blues, it's an old style of music. It's heavily influential on country music, and probably one of the coolest things I like about it is it's hard. This is hard to play. This alternating thumb style stuff is tough, and you have to get your other fingers working. I've worked for years at this, and you get your thumb going on autopilot, and then now you got to get your index finger and middle finger going. You got this going. See how that goes? It's really tough. You can go. You like Dr. Pepper, you like Sprite. You got me feeling alright. Come on, baby, why don't we drink Coca-Cola and fall in love. I got your Dr. Pepper right here. You wanna try some A&W root beer? Come on, baby, why don't we drink Coca-Cola and fall in love? Think of all the fun you miss when all you got to do is give me a kiss. I got a sweet tooth for my sweetheart, nothing that Dr. Pepper can impart. See, I got your Dr. Pepper right here, or I can give you some A&W root beer. Come on, baby, why don't we drink Coca-Cola and fall in love? Think of all the fun you miss when all you gotta do is give me a kiss. I got a sweet tooth for my sweetheart, Dr. Pepper cannot impart. Say, I got your Dr. Pepper right here. How about some A&W root beer? Come on, baby, why don't we drink Coca-Cola and fall in love? Of course, they played a lot of gospel music back then too, and I use this thing to play a lot of that. I love gospel music. You know, gospel music is kind of, I mean, aside from all the religious implications that come with it, a lot of people tack religious implications on anything, everything. And I used to know a preacher who would preach a sermon, and he was just real big on the numbers, and he would even count the numbers at the bottom of the page, the bottom right-hand corner of the page, and he would, say things like, well, this is page 20 and this is page 21. You add them together, you got 41, and you divide that by 2, and you've got a decimal, and if you please turn into your Bibles to such and such. He's real big on numbers. Well, aside from the religious implications, I like gospel music because of what it says to the soul, which is, if you take all the lyrics aside, this melody and these lyrics have been around since before you were born. They were sung by your ancestors, and they were sung by your ancestors' ancestors, and they were songs that they thought were very special, and the really, really good ones were songs that were thought to be even more special. That's why they've lasted this long. Otherwise, they would have just died a slow death like Milli Vanilli. But somehow these songs were good enough to make it across centuries, and that's what I love. That's why I like gospel music. It makes me feel connected to my people who held these songs very dear. I wrote a book about my own life, named after a gospel song. It was a gospel song in the hymnal. I remember, I think it used to be on page 136 in the old hymnal we had at our church. And it was the only hymn that I could see, at least that I remember, that had a question mark on it. Now, there are other hymns with question marks on it, but I liked this, and I'm going to play it for you here.